Rachel.
Hello, thanks for reaching out and connecting. It's nice.
No,
Always nice to
yeah, it's
meet
cool.
people.
Glad you said yes. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's an easy yes. To talk
Yeah,
about things that you love doing is an easy
right.
yes, right?
Yeah. So, for anyone who has not heard of you or found you on Instagram,
Mhm.
where you're kind of known as Rooted Wings,
Yeah.
your company is called Rooted Wings. Can you introduce yourself and what you do?
Sure, yeah, I'm Rachel and I run my business is called Rooted Wings, which looks at ways of getting children and families and adults and anybody really into nature using a mix of forest schools and adventure and other woodland activities like walking or different adventure kind of sports and things. So anything really, just to get people out into nature, connecting with themselves, connecting with others, and getting those rosy red pinched cheeks from having a good old time outside. I have 4 kids and we are hybrid schoolers. So my eldest has just decided a few months ago to go to school. He started into year 8 and my youngest is 5. So kind of Rooted Wings is an extension really of what we do at home with homeschool and how we live. And it's kind of encompasses all of that really.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Cool. So, the reason why I asked to chat with Rachel is that you're doing the kind of work that I would like to be doing in a few years' time, I guess.
Yeah.
So,
Brilliant.
kind of looking ahead and really admiring what you're doing, and yeah, kind of wanted to hear a bit more and also like pick
Yeah.
your brains a bit and yeah, just find out more. And
Yeah. Brilliant. Thanks for
yeah,
getting in touch.
no, it's cool. And I think it was your idea actually to, maybe put this live or something.
Yeah.
Because actually this conversation might spark things for other people. Maybe they're also interested in starting this journey of like working outdoors or working with people in nature, and or just interested in the benefits of working in nature.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think there's always something really nice about connecting with people's stories and identifying and thinking, oh yeah, that was me, and oh maybe I could try that, and kind of gives you a bit of hope and a bit of inspiration that they're a real life person doing this from their actual real life, because especially because everything is so virtual. And we were just saying earlier about how there's like a see you on Zoom gif now that you can use, and just the personal touch is always a nicer connection, and the more people to join that conversation the better really. So yeah, I'm always up for kind of
Yeah,
inviting people into my space, however that looks like. So
brilliant, thank you.
yeah.
Great. So I'm Hannah. I run Wild Folk,
Mm.
and so I generally just run events for general public to get
Mhm.
outdoors. And so far, that's been foraging walks, cooking on the fire workshops, storytelling. I've gotten people in to kind of run that stuff, like the foraging, the storytelling.
Yeah,
And so then I'm kind of like the host and the organizer.
that's brilliant.
Yeah, so that's been fun. And then I
Yeah.
also last year did a course it was called Nature Facilitation.
Hmm.
That was a lot more around what it means to hold a space in general, but also in nature particularly. Things like kind of circles. We hold those circles, opening circles,
Yeah.
circles, that kind of thing. Different styles of leadership. Um,
Yeah.
how to keep it safe, and then also a lot around play. We did a lot of
Mm.
singing and a lot of creativity, and so that really inspired me because that brought out all of my sort of creativity.
Yeah, yeah. That sounds like a brilliant course.
Yeah,
I think there's loads of ways into doing work in nature with people and children, so there isn't one avenue. So
yeah,
if our schools is an avenue, but
yeah,
what you're doing sounds equally amazing. Um, Especially
yeah.
on course as well. Sounds brilliant.
Well, yeah, when that course came along, actually,
Yeah.
it felt like it ticked a load of boxes that Forest School
Yeah.
hadn't quite yet.
Yeah.
It's more
Mhm.
around facilitating general groups rather than
Yeah.
children specifically. And then also there was a little bit around like the running of it, in terms of being a business and loads of stuff like that. But the Forest School is still an option potentially, so I'm always
Yeah.
interested to hear from people doing that as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I just think getting stuck in is the best way to do it. I think life experience
Mm,
and it is qualifies you for a lot, but it doesn't give us feel like we have to have kudos all the time to do what we do. But sometimes it's just your life experience is more than enough, and these courses and things help you along the way. So yeah, I think it's brilliant. You know, private schools isn't the only way, and it's not the answer to everything. But it is easy terminology for people to hang on. It's like, this is what I do. It's Forest Schools. This is, and people go, oh, okay, I get what you mean. Yeah, yeah, great. But yeah, that sounds lovely.
Cool. Yeah, kind of like we're all taking wiggly routes along.
Yeah, totally. And you gotta find a style that works for you as well, and you know what you want to do. You know, and there's plenty of deviations within that as well. That I'm sure there's loads coming up now, which is brilliant. There's loads of outdoor businesses and companies, and a real drive to get people outside, and yeah, it's fantastic. So, and people will connect to you more than anything. Which, you know, has been a big learn for me, is in like, I don't have to have all the qualifications, but people connect to your journey, and so sharing your story and sharing your journey, people can really identify with that, and that's really important, sharing where you're at and what you're kind of doing. So I think that's lovely.
Yeah, great. Well, on that note, first question was how Rooted Wings came to be, and
Yeah.
When I watched your video, it was called Exhale. The beginning, your narration said something like your structures and your life as it was just kind of fell. And I was really intrigued what you meant by that, if you don't mind sharing.
Yeah, just complete crisis. So my husband was made redundant. My daughter was really, really struggling in school. Financially, we were under a lot of pressure. We had a lot of family illness going on. We were in a rented house that wasn't really working for us anymore. I just finished up. I was teaching, primary school teaching. I was entered maternity leave with my fourth child, so my work was kind of finishing up. There was just a whole lot of other personal stuff as well going on. I just thought, oh, like all of the things, like your work, your house, your life, family, all the kind of things that you think are in there and you kind of can predict, or there's a familiarity to them, just wasn't anymore. And we're like, oh no. And then, but you know, it was a really, really difficult time. I think I mentioned that in the video. But reflectively looking back, it was kind of, some things, you know, they have to break open for the light to get in. The Leonard Cohen song. And I think that's what that was the beginning of like the cracks opening up, and us realizing that actually, while this was really painful, it's a really helpful thing. I mean, I don't think we could have said that at the time, but reflectively speaking, it's like, oh, this is actually really helpful to just really center in and prioritize what was really important to us. And you know, our education was totally challenged because our daughter was really struggling in school, and obviously I feel like I've been in school my whole life. Like I went to secondary school, then I went to teacher training university, which is just like school but for uni people and teenagers. That's what I was when I was back then. And then I went back into school to teach. So then all of a sudden I was like, oh, the school system really isn't working. And you know, and I get the pressures inside and outside of that, and I knew what the road looked like in order to get what I needed for my daughter. The school system, I just thought maybe there's just another way. And so at that point then, my sister-in-law is a homeschooler in America, and I happened to be over on holiday at the time. She just kind of guided me through those initial steps of like just connecting with people. She went to like my first home ed meetup with me, because you're coming from very structured education into homeschool, was quite a turnabout. Like I have no navigation tools. People say to me all the time, like, oh, you're a teacher, oh, that must really help you. I'm like, no, I've had to unlearn all of my whole life in order to rethink what an education is. That at the time was like quite overwhelming, because I had no reference point, no base point to go, oh, this is what I think, this is my home educational ethos, this is my philosophy. And it's such a wide spectrum. Some people do school at home, and some on the other side of that spectrum, other people do unschooling, where it's entirely child-led. And so at that point in the time, so like the whole thing that I'd worked my whole life to be a teacher just wasn't relevant in the context that I thought it would be. And then my husband was made redundant. So I kind of said that already. It just kind of was like, oh, where are all the reference points gone and where do we go from here? And then we had 4 children. So it was like, oh, right, okay. Let's reassess everything. So we did.
And so how
Um,
long from that point was it before you then started Rooted Wings?
It was probably about, well, I volunteered at a local forest school for probably a year. So it was probably about 2 years. We moved out from where we were living to where we are now. So we moved house as well and cities and everything during that time. We started going to a forest school. Forest school had just started becoming mainstream in the school I was working in, and another teacher had just done the qualification. So it was kind of just becoming topical, but it was this kind of new, nobody was really sure what it was kind of thing. So started going to then a forest school shortly after moving, and a homeschool one. And the facilitator there, she was just lovely. She was really warm, really encouraging. She's like, yeah, it's like, I think you should do it. I was like, yeah, I've looked at it for ages. Like, yeah, just go for it. So she really encouraged me to do it, which was really lovely. She obviously shared her story with me a little bit, and I was like, oh, I can relate to a lot of what you're saying, and I need to find a different way. And I've just found nature to be a really powerful tool for us. And so kind of entered into that avenue of the forest school qualification and going from there.
Cool. Yeah. It often is these like touch points with people, isn't it? I find
you
have a conversation and then that leads you on to that course or that other person, and then like it's another podcast or like, and then
yeah, totally. How did you find your way into wild folk?
I really want like a story like yours. It just
no, you don't. You really don't.
Yeah, like there wasn't a moment really.
Yeah.
It kind of came out of another business where I started one called Enamelware Events, which still is running, but it's more in the background. Where I hire out crockery enamelware for weddings mainly.
Yeah.
But through running that, I think, I don't know, maybe through photo shoots I was doing, or like, I don't know, pictures on Pinterest, it just, the enamelware, the enamel mug and stuff is so connected to kind of outdoorsy events.
Yeah.
I think I then was like, do you know what? I just want to do these events. I care more about that. And I did actually have a Prince's Trust mentor at the time, and I put this to them. And I said, I really actually, I'm not that passionate about plates, if I'm honest. Like I'd rather do this other thing. And then she was actually like, yeah, go for it then. Yeah, why don't you try? So yeah,
that's so good.
Yeah.
Having cheerleaders that go, I can see that, go for it. It's so good.
Yeah, I think so. It felt like I had, like, I do tend to start things when I shouldn't always. So it was helpful having someone go, no, that sounds plausible, or like and then I started it in December 2018 was the first ever event I ran. So still kind of early days really. And this year was basically wiped out pretty much. So.
I know. I know.
Yeah.
I know. All part of it, isn't it? Like, I don't want to be toxic positivity about all this stuff, but it is just part of the fabric of life. I mean, I don't think anybody saw this coming, but it's part of the journey. And I think that's, one of my biggest learns is like life is ever evolving, and we have to evolve with it in one sense and learn. And in doing our own learning, that's powerful to other people, that we can share our own learning and connecting them on their journey as we connect on our own journey. And doing that in community with people and who want that is, I think it's I found it just to be a beautiful thing and a really safe thing. Most of the time, I'm not like talking about bearing my soul to the world all the time, but it's all right. I'm not going to come and download on you, or anybody in particular, but just in having that safe space and that ability for people just to be open and kind, I think that just goes such a long way.
Do you find that in your in-person stuff then, that there's a kind of vulnerability in your groups that you hold? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, there can be. It really can be. I think, you know, being a mum of 4 kids has taught me a lot. And all my kids are like, they're just very different. And I think any parent would probably tell you that all your children are very different. And so that's challenging in itself, because nothing is the same. So you're constantly having to grow and adapt and change who you are as a person in order to, you know, help meet your child's needs. And so I'm not adverse to sharing what's going on in my life. I don't want to overshare or overwhelm people, you know, or burden people with what's going on. I'm not a drain in that sense. So I try not to be, you know. Sorry, I do get a 10 out of 10 for oversharing too much information at times. But I think there's a natural way with it that's like, this is me, it's who I am, and I'm comfortable with where I am and where I not am, where I am not.
Yeah.
And I think it's about accepting your strengths and your weaknesses, and not trying to like overplay your strengths in order to hide your weaknesses, or not then trying to hide behind your weaknesses to play like, oh no, you know, I couldn't do that, I'm terrible at this, and in order to build this false, you know, cheerleading squad, like, oh no, you're fabulous, you're great. It's like, no, I just want to own who I am. And that will come with the rawness and the vulnerability that I have found in other people to be really refreshing in it. And I hope that when that's part of that, people feel comfortable to just come and be where they are on their journey. I don't necessarily want people to open up to me or share or anything like that. I just want to create a space that people go, oh, this is real life. There's highs and there's lows, and it's acceptable to be like in this space, and my children are acceptable to be how they are in this space. And there isn't like a certain way things have to be done, or how children have to perform, or a certain program necessarily. I'm very happy to go with the flow and what piques children's interests, and I always have a loose structure to what I do, but ultimately I'm not trying to push my agenda, and I'm trying to create a space that people can come and connect, whatever that looks like for them. And to feel a warmth.
That's really cool. I imagine people kind of feel that atmosphere without necessarily having to say it's like that. People kind of like come like, oh, okay. Kind of like,
I hope so.
Yeah, I think so. Well, I feel that when I've walked into groups or places, and a sense of whether I want to stay or not.
Yeah. Because it's hard to know what you create, you know. But people, the feedback is always generally really positive, and people come again. So I guess that means they like coming.
Yeah.
I don't know, if you're listening, tell me.
So what is the favorite thing that you do at a Rooted Wings thing? Like, is it a particular event or activity or program? Are you able to pick one out, or is it just everything?
That's a really hard question. I think what I love doing is, I kind of have touched on it there already, is in I love people, just generally people arrive, if you're not used to being out and about in nature and mud, which some people who come and they just to get the run of how stuff goes, and other people are like, it's just new to them. And so the whole process of actually arriving somewhere with their children in the right gear, in one piece, and like all the arguments in the car and all the stress of getting out and having the right snacks and drinks and all the things that you need, you know, to prepare for your woodland adventure. And you see people just getting out of the car and they're like, oh, I'm so stressed. And then, you know, you see them leaving and they're generally covered in mud, or there's leaves in their hair, or there's, you know, they leave just a little bit more relaxed, a little bit more like they've had a breather, that the kids have had a good time. They've been able just to switch off from meeting their kids' needs for the whole session, like if we're talking about a family session. And it's kind of a theme I see in the majority of sessions. I think it's fair to say anybody who works outdoors or in nature would say that you arrive, and I know it for myself, like I arrive like head full of all the stuff that's been going on. And then by the end of the session, it's like, it's just been great. It's been great to be out and about, connect with people, connect with nature, connect with myself. And so that exchange, I think, is, all the activities that I run will connect with different people at different times. And people love the fire, and that's obviously a really popular time. And the s'mores and the hot chocolate is definitely always a highlight. But even just looking at trees or playing a few games or whatever it is, people will connect with different things depending on the personality. And I just enjoy watching that exchange go on in people. So I guess it's not like this is what will happen. It's not like an out and out aim, but I know now from having run the sessions that I do that at some point there'll be this kind of like, this is okay, this is good, my kids are safe, they're having a good time. We're outdoors, we're getting some fresh air. Like, I know this is good for my kids, and I'm actually doing it. Go me. Like, like I, really want to champion that in people and in parents and families as well.
It's really cool. What do you find is the way that helps that kind of stress go? Like, do you do a particular activity at the start, or does it just kind of fade as you go?
I generally try and start with games or activities so that help people to get to know the space. So like even just like childhood games like hide and seek or the variations of that. A lot of kids come nervous as well if they don't know you or they don't know the woods, and actually being outside can be very overwhelming if it's not something that you're familiar with doing, because it's a totally different experience for your senses. So if we're used to being indoors and we have screens and we have Wi-Fi and heating and all the beautiful modern comforts that we all enjoy, but being outside is a very different experience for your body and for your mind and your soul. So the allowing people just to kind of find their way through a game means that the focus isn't necessarily on them straight away. It's like on playing the game. And so that helps to kind of just soothe anxiety and nerves, and it's a familiar game. And let the children run it if it's a children's session, or if they have ideas, they contribute them. So it's kind of very fluid, very ebb and flow. And generally, I don't think I've lost anybody yet. They don't run away too far because I encourage them to go. But initially, kids are nervous, and if they don't know the space, or they're just our system, a school system, and and to be safe with their kids, like you usually have really strong boundaries of like you can only go this far, or this is the school playground boundary, or this is the playground, and this is where we're staying. And so we're used to living like that. But when you come to an outdoor session, when there's no actual walls particularly, that can be that's just even a learning experience in itself, that kind of subconscious expansion of their minds and settling in. And so I find the games really help that. So
yeah, that's really fun. Yeah, I really like as well that you have these family days where the parents are involved, because I have actually had, I was helping on this camp once for young people, and they were actually young people that had been referred, so they were going through a whole mix of different stuff, but struggling with life in some way. And when the parents dropped them off on the first day, I was showing one of the mums the toilets on her way out, and and she just said, "Oh, I want to stay." I was just like, they need it as much as like
they do.
young people do, and possibly like more than the children do. So yeah, I really love the idea that the parents also get that moment as well. And when you do work with the parents, do you have everyone in one group, or do you do some work with the parents like separately, or is it all like together?
It's generally all together. Family sessions have been impossible this year, really with the restrictions and stuff, but it can be a bit of mixture of everything. We generally start all together with activities, and then once activities are done, and like if I have kind of said these are the craft activities, or feel free to try this or do this or go here, or people will wander off in their own time. I always try and build in a little break for the parents just to have a cup of tea, and generally kids at that point then have a few activities set up. And some parents will gravitate towards their kids, what their kids are doing, and other parents will just sit down and have a natter and strike a conversation. Or so I don't try and force any expectations of what's acceptable. But generally, I find that the adults want to connect with other adults and just have a chat, especially while their kids are off playing and they're kind of occupied, and they just get to like just sit and exhale a little bit.
Right.
Switch off, yeah.
Actually by itself. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's cool. What's the max age of children that you're working with at the moment?
At the moment, the eldest child we have is 13. And it's not really an area that I have worked so much with in this context as the teenager age group, because my eldest is now just turned 13. So kind of Rooted Wings comes from my lifestyle and my kids and what the stages that they're going through. So now looking at doing some events for teenagers and older kids, and what that looks like and what that feels like. So it's kind of like a push the space. But I'm happy to work with any age group. I don't have like a limit. I say, oh no, I can't work with you.
Yeah.
You're 16. Yeah. So, but yeah, I think my business is evolving as we go and growing and learning, and so I'm kind of just going with that. I don't want to like shelve my life in order to drive my business. They're kind of fluid and they interchange with each other, and it's an extension.
Yeah, it's really nice that it sort of runs parallel and you're able to bring your children along as well.
Yeah. Which is sometimes awful.
Yeah, I imagine.
Yeah. Mom, no, I'm not mom right now. Don't have any needs. Yeah, the duality of that can be challenging, but generally they're very comfortable in the woods, and they kind of know the run of stuff, so they're quite independent. Well, now my youngest is 5, he's a bit older, doesn't need me as much to do all the things for him, but yeah, it is fun.
Is your eldest still like up for it?
Yeah, he enjoys it, not as much. I think I read an article somewhere that really reassured me that at the age of about 11 or 12, children drop off it being so focused. I think if there was more adrenaline involved, that they are more interested, and it just becomes, they're not sure what's cool or acceptable anymore. They kind of tend to drop off to watch what others are doing. So I've had older kids that come and they kind of don't really engage, and you can see them struggling, like, oh yeah, I'd love to do that, but I can't because my friend is here and they're like judging me. So they kind of just hang back, or they still have a great time, but you're like, oh, just let it go, go ahead and embrace it. But again, I think that's part of growing up, and he'll still come with us for walks and things, and he does enjoy them. But I'm just glad he's generally happy to be in the vicinity of us right now, still, teenagers. So it's good.
Have you managed to find a way for Rooted Wings to earn enough money for you, or did you do other things on the side?
Short answer to that is no and no, because we made the choice to home educate. That's my number one focus. And then Rooted Wings, I think, I said earlier, kind of as an extension of that. So I don't give it a huge amount of time, and really it's only things that I can do that the kids can come to them with me. My husband is brilliant, and he'll step in and have the kids at various times, but so we just have, it's a bit of a juggle if I'm doing adult only events or things. So I guess in one way, Rooted Wings is just quite in an embryonic stage, because I don't want it to go any faster than I'm going with our family, and with the kids and homeschooling, because it kind of comes out of that, and our family life, and then I'm kind of like, I guess it's just foundational what I'm doing now, with the work I'm doing with my own kids, and then just offering that as a wider invitation to people. Like, I don't have my own site, I don't have anything that I can say, yeah, this is Rooted Wings and this is what we do, this is where we are, that kind of thing. So so you'll know yourself behind the scenes all the work and hours that goes into it, and what you can what feels like a good and fair price to charge for things. It never equates to the amount of work that you put in.
Yeah.
Never really about the financial gain, but because it's more about an extension and an invitation of your heart rather than anything else. You can't really put a price on that, but it is nice to, good to make ends meet and to charge for a little bit of your time and what you're offering. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm interested in like the different models of how people do this kind of.
I do know people who do make a reasonable, living out of it. And there's lots of funding and things as well.
Yeah.
But I haven't tapped into any funding streams or gone down that route at all because, I'm not full time, and it's not my, as much as I love it, and I'd love it to be more of a number one priority. It's not right now at the moment, and I just have to remember it and keep pace with our bigger picture.
Yeah, it's hard, isn't it, to do that? To be like, okay,
yeah, slow, it's okay, it'll still be here. Keep going and growing.
Do you find like when you see that people get a lot of value from stuff and that there's demand for stuff, do you feel yourself wanting to give more because you know that people want?
Yeah, definitely the connection, isn't it? You see the connection, you're like, oh, I'm just so glad that you've been able to come into a space and you feel better for it. And I know that I so appreciated that when we started coming to Forest School, to Beth's Forest School. It's like, oh, it's just the tonic that we needed for right now, and to be able to extend that to other people is it's so soul giving and refreshing and energizing that you kind of I want to do more, I want to do more. But ultimately, it's I have to remember that I am only one person, and there's other people who have big needs on me, and I can't, giving out of depth, it doesn't help anybody. So I just have to remember to go, whoa, it's okay. It'll come, it'll be there.
Yeah, that's good. You're really aware of those limits and your priorities, I think.
Yeah, I try to be. I wouldn't say I get it right all the time. The kids are all right so far. They're all alive.
Yeah. You shared, I think, in your newsletter that your husband has started his own practice in psychotherapy and counselling. I was just really interested in the use of psychotherapy and counselling within the kind of nature space. And so when I've wondered about, like, when I want to do this work in the future, working outdoors, working with people, do I just come as Hannah with her background in youth work and support work and or is there a specialism I want to get into? What is the need? Or do I want to just bring people onto the team who have those specialisms? So I guess this is a really long question intro, but
that was good.
Yeah, so I guess like art therapy or counselling, Forest School are all sort of areas that I've considered specialising in. So anyway, so the question really is like, do you see having a trained psychotherapist or counsellor, like, would that be a really valuable thing at Rooted Wings, or have you found the skills that you and your team have enough? If that makes sense.
Yeah, good question. I think if you're doing psychotherapy and counselling, that's ultimately what you want to do, is get in deep with people into that kind of psychotherapy side of things and counselling, and really unearth and do some deep work. And I know people that cross over and they do both. They do like forest therapy, so they might do a walk and a talk out in the woods and in nature, and some people find that really really helpful. But I think there's a lot of layers to your question. So I think it ultimately is like, what is that? What's at the core of your heart that you want to do? And so, like, my husband went into psychotherapy and counselling because he specifically wanted to go down that route. He's worked in social justice sector, and in kind of all those areas for a long time. And then he's like, actually, I just want to be able to help people one-on-one to really find some breakthrough healing for themselves. And so he specifically went into doing that. So the context in which he does that in could differ and could evolve and could change. I think I went into what I've done with forest schools and stuff because I wanted to offer a space that people could come to. I don't want to be the hero or offer any solutions to them. I want to empower people to be able to go and do that. And um, while I'm quite intuitive as to understanding what's going on with people, I'm not brilliant at like taking them through step by step. And I think that's, you know, what psychotherapists and counselors are brilliant at doing, is being able to really walk alongside people really well. And I really admire the work that they do, and I really value it, you know, and think I'd always encourage people to go and seek professional health services and counsellors and therapists. You know, I've benefited from it massively myself in my own journey. But yeah, so I didn't want to go that specific. And I guess from being from a teaching background and working with kids, and I think there's a lot of power in being able to work with the adults as well as the family, and not in any kind of specific way, but it, you know, from my own experience, and having a space that was safe and engaging and wholesome for us all, you know, and having 4 kids, it's quite a rare find that you'll find everybody will enjoy an element of it. You know, they mightn't enjoy it all, but there's something there for everybody, and we generally all come home feeling a lot better about things. And so that's kind of more along the lines of what I wanted to be able to offer. And in conjunction with homeschooling and home educating, I wanted something that would fit. And then if things evolve from that, which they may well do, and actually I've just nearly completed, I did a certificate in therapeutic skills for outdoor leaders just recently. So I think people, you know, with lockdown and everything else that's been going on, people have turned to nature an awful lot more. And there are just some really simple things that we can do in that therapeutic area without necessarily going, you know, for focused therapy or counselling, that are really, really helpful to kind of keep your resonance, giving yourself more bandwidth, so that if you live here, and you've quite a small bandwidth of resonance, you know, something goes wrong and you've already gone into hyper, which is your adrenaline kicks in and your fight, flight, freeze or faint mode. And then once you're past that top layer, you've got to go full cycle. So you've got to go hyper, then you go hypo, and then you come back to this kind of your day-to-day resonance. So I think what being in nature is that it broadens, in my own experience, it broadens that bandwidth so that you have more capacity. And it's when you're in that level there that you can actually really start to deal with some of your trouble and your hurts and things that you carry with you. And I think nature's really therapeutic in that sense. But in terms of actually dealing with specific issues, I'd always recommend saying going, you know, seeking out a counsellor and a therapist, just something that you really relate to, and seeking some good solid friends. And I think that they're all really helpful. I don't think one is better than the other or superior, but I think as you evolve on your own journey, I think actually I really value the therapeutic worlds, but I don't want to go into delivering specifics, but I can offer an environment that is therapeutic. Does that make sense? Am I
yeah, I think I'm in a similar thing of like, wanting to create that kind of space. I think sometimes it can sound a little bit airy fairy, or to me at least, you know, when I'm thinking like, this is just what I want to create, and I'm like, you know, like, will that be enough? Like, but I think it absolutely is. I think it's just when it's that thing of what you said earlier, when you feel like you need the certificate to say you're qualified or whatever. But yeah, I think that's the kind of thing I want to bring.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
Yeah. So if you picture, like, you visualize people who have come to a Rooted Wings offering, how do you imagine them to be in 5 years? Because
this is a good one.
because of having like come to your things.
I think, you know, if they've come regularly over a 5-year period, I'd love to think that they have an inbuilt sense of confidence in being outdoors, how to engage in that environment, how to connect with themselves there, how to bring their kids and be outdoors. As silly as that sounds, like I just think it can be a very overwhelming environment to be outside for long periods of time, unless it's something that you've built up to. Like, what do you do if you get wet, and what do you do if you need a wee, and what do you do, you know, how do you manage all those things? I'd love to hear, or I would hope that they have developed holistically, so that their mind, body, and soul has benefited from it. And I'd love that they're committed to a journey of like, oh, life is a journey. I'm on a journey. I'm evolving and growing. It's okay if I don't know everything. It's okay if I get it wrong. My kids are okay. I'm okay as I am. And then also like just then a commitment to like, oh, like I can be who I am, so I can be vulnerable, I can be raw, and it's okay. And this is a good place to do that. So I guess that they have hope and they feel empowered in their own life and with their kids and with themselves.
Amazing. Sounds great.
Does sound great. So does that come back in 5 years if anybody's listening who comes to my thing?
It's
Let me
something
know.
to like have on your wall when you're feeling tired. Like,
Yeah.
oh, this is why I'm doing it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, amazing. And do you bring faith or spirituality into your work at all? Whether that's because of a personal one or in trying to be inclusive or that kind of thing?
Yeah, and not directly, no. I think in the wider spectrum of thing, I think nature speaks to us and it reflects ourselves to us as well in a way that isn't cognitive or academic. And so I think tuning into yourself and tuning into nature, um, it offers us an invitation to, for our holistic invitation to our, our mind, body, and soul. So I think there is a spiritual element to it, but I don't direct that particularly. And even just looking at the seasons, and I think I touched on this in my newsletter recently, like how winter is an invitation to rest and to hibernate and prioritize that in their lives. And I think I did kind of my Instagram posts are like evolutions of where I'm thinking what I'm at right now. And I posted last night about, Noel being a time to be born. I just think, oh, that totally reframes the whole winter season for me. Like I could just rest in this hibernation and something can be born. It's like, oh, well, then I need to be ready. So then it's really acceptable to rest intentionally.
Yeah.
And so tuning into that kind of spiritual in itself, in that sense, you don't it goes across all religions and doctrines as far as I'm aware and as I can read that, and just nature does that, and I think that tuning into ourselves is a really spiritual, holy thing.
Totally.
And doing inner work is a really holy thing. So.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I find sometimes when I'm out in the woods or like don't know, if that feeling, a really strong sense of belonging. I think partly that's like belonging to something bigger.
Yeah, like awe and wonder.
Yeah.
And recognizing what that is, and that there's a massive universe and a whole thing that goes on around you without needing your input.
Yeah,
it will carry on, regardless of what's happening in the environment or the world around us. And getting a grasp of that is really reassuring. I think it can be overwhelming. It's like, where do I fit in this big puzzle?
Yeah, it can be. Yeah.
But at the same time, reassuring is in like, okay, this has been here. This tree, for example, has been here before me for hundreds of years and will carry on being here after me for hundreds of years. And so, having a sense of this is okay, this is normal, this tree has seen a lot worse. Or, it's just seen stuff, and the kind of sense like I'm part of this as well.
Totally. Yeah. The question I thought I'd end on, which is a bit of a big one, is actually you said earlier something like it's like working out what it is the core of your heart wants you to do or something. And I was just thinking, was there anything that helped you and also your husband get to that place where you were like, yeah, that's it? Were there tools, or was it just it came to you one day?
I think it's come out of our journey. In that video that you referenced earlier, I think that captures beautifully. It's a summary of a kind of a condensed version of the last 5 years, where we have pivoted completely. You know, we sold up everything, we moved, we have retrained, we have relooked at our lives. Um, and I think as painful as that has been, it's really been a very powerful position to be in, where we really get to identify and decide what it is, what we want to do, and how we want to live, and what that looks like. And I think as our kids grow, and as we grow as people, that will keep evolving. But our core has always been to help people, and that's, with my husband doing the work that he's done in the social justice sector and in the charity sector. So what he does now is able to help people in a very powerful way, and on a one-to-one kind of basis. And so I think that'll keep evolving. Whether we actually get to combine our works, we'll see. But I think just paying attention to your journey and paying attention to your inner world, is a really powerful way to really tune in to what it is that makes you passionate, makes you feel alive, makes you feel good. And it's not easy. It sounds so beautiful and like, oh yeah, idyllic. When you do that inner work and you really start looking in and you seek out therapy and counseling, and you start to work out my introvert, extrovert, or I don't know if you heard the Enneagram, what number am I in the Enneagram, or what it is I need to own about me, my strengths, my weaknesses, and I put my hand up and say, yeah, that's me, and that's awful, but here we go. And so doing that work has definitely pointed us in a place of like, okay, and then this is what my kids need, this is what makes them tick, and this is what I need to be able to provide, and this is the capacity I need to have in order to meet that need. That's also a huge factor in it for us as well. We're both from families of 6 kids, so family has always been like a very strong theme in both of our lives. So I don't really have a specific answer other than to follow your own journey and to really pay attention to that. I don't know if you found it, the more you pay attention to nature, the more like it reflects what's going on in you. And I was having a difficult situation a few months ago with a friend, and I just was going for a walk in the woods, and all of a sudden I saw the path that I usually go on. This big tree had fallen across the path, and I was like, oh, I can't get around that. Like, what am I gonna do? And eventually we found our way. It was with the kids, so we were like, oh, it was just resting on a tree nearby, and it was a recent fall. So I was like, oh, we need to pay attention and be careful and do due diligence to it. And we found our way through, and I just looked back and I thought, and this beam of light flooded through, and I actually took a picture of it at the time, and it just was suddenly this like metaphorical purpose of like, sometimes obstacles in your path, but it's not necessarily to hinder you, it's just to help you find a new way. And I don't know, it sounds like a bit airy fairy, I get that, but the more attention I've paid to nature, the more I'm like, oh, okay, this resonates with me, this is reflecting what's going on in me, and there's guidance and there's healing and there's health in that. And so doing that, it just makes you a real person, not somebody, not like a silver lining person. Or I don't know if you've seen the Brené Brown, the empathy versus sympathy video, and to be empathic with somebody, it really means that you have to be really in touch with your own feelings, the positive and the negative ones, and not just offering sympathy, which really is toxic positivity, at least, or it belittles the negative feelings. And I think there's a lot of power in those negative feelings, and following that trail is brave work, but so worthwhile. And I mean, that's the only answer I have, is in like, I've just followed that trail as best as I can in order to uncover me and stuff that has attached itself to me that I've carried for a long time, but actually isn't mine to carry, and like being able to let go of that kind of stuff has just opened up this kind of new avenue. So where it'll go, I don't know, but I'm really enjoying the work that I do, and I love working with the kids and the families that I do work with, and my kids benefit from it, and we all benefit from it as a family. So it's a very wonderful thing that I enjoy doing, and I'm very grateful for and appreciative of it. It's not really that helpful now, so
No, it's really powerful. Yeah, no, there's loads of moments where like, yeah, it sounds like it's important that you are constantly practicing what you preach for yourself. And there's no point pushing ahead just to do it and leaving yourself behind. It's so connected to what you give. That's really cool. Okay, well, I could talk to you for ages. Thanks so much for it's been really cool.
Thank you for getting in touch and taking the initiative, and it's been really nice.
Yeah.
Well, it's been great to chat to you, Hannah.
And you have a lovely rest of evening.
Yeah, you too.
Bye.
Bye.